All right, I want to welcome you guys back to the Connect Run Club podcast. We're excited to have Steve Cannon with us today. Steve is calling in from Des Moines, Iowa, I believe you said earlier, hanging out in a coffee shop, chatting with us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good stuff. Well, if you guys have not heard of Steve, you might have heard his book 40 Days, or heard about his crazy adventures around Lake Michigan, where he ran, was it 1,037 miles in 40 days? Is that the distance?
You got it, brother.
And then I was looking me up before, and I was like, all right, that's pretty crazy. And then I would say that's not even the craziest thing that you've done. You've done all kinds of stuff, whether it's ultra endurance bike events, or kayaking, or raising tons of money for charity. I mean, you just do crazy things. I think that before we even get going, when people get an idea of your story, what's like the most common reaction when you tell them I've done this? What do folks say to you?
I think the first question you get is just why.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's fairly simple. I suppose there's two sides to it. I'm not a crazy athlete. I didn't run or do any of this kind of stuff in high school or college. It wasn't until I moved to Colorado in my late 20s. At the time, I'd caught the rock climbing bug a little bit, and it was really out there that I started to get my eyes open to what's possible.
Yeah.
People out there doing crazy things in all different arenas. And I guess that kind of watered the seed, if you will. And then from there, even then, doing a 5K or a 10K, I would have never seen this as being my future. And if you fast forward years ahead, the why then became to repay the people in the cancer fight that have taught me so much about the value of life and the value of every moment and how fleeting life can be and things like that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I know, and I think it was on your site. Was it 700,000? Is that the right amount for cancer charities that you've raised?
Yeah, that's got to be pretty close.
That's awesome. How has that happened? As far as the charity raising, is it coming through people sponsoring you, or?
Well, in 2009, I had decided to try and run across my home state here in Iowa. And at the time, I had never really done anything. I'd run the Chicago Marathon and raised like $25, in my grandma's memory for the American Heart Association. But I really hadn't done, anything besides that as far as the fundraising. But the run across Iowa was such a big stretch for me that I thought I should do it to raise money for a cause, because I figured that would make it harder to quit. And there was really no great altruistic reason for doing it other than probably my selfish reasons of just wanting to make it as hard as possible to quit. But through that, we raised $3,500 or something like that for the Lance Armstrong Foundation. And that was just individual donors. You just set up your blog, and you were able to put a little button on there, and people could just hit it and drop $10 or $20 or whatever the case. And that journey, that 11-day, 11 marathon journey across my home state is what changed my life. That's when I met these people, and the cancer stories became much more real. And from there, I decided I'd take my love of adventure and use it for good.
How did you go? You said you kind of got into sports. It sounds like when you were living in Colorado and you were rock climbing, which is awesome. I used to rock climb. I lived in Ohio for a little bit, so we would climb in like Kentucky, go rock climbing. I loved it. It was so much fun. But how did you go from rock climbing to even just running a marathon? Like, that seems like a pretty big jump. What was that progress like for you?
Yeah, the running was only a social issue. Literally, I did it to try and meet girls. I was out there, and me and my buddy, I didn't know anybody out there. My life for 6-7 months consisted of a a padded mat that I'd sit next to a big rock and I'd just boulder all day. And that's just all I did. I loved it. But I didn't know anybody. My buddy managed a running store out in Colorado Springs. And so everybody ran out there. So I went and ran a 5K on St. Patty's Day just to meet people. And even then it sucked, man. It took me like 33 minutes to run a 5K. I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
You know, and I had no aspiration, but as many of us as human beings do, you're like, oh, I've done 2 or 3 of these. Maybe I'll try a 10K. And, you know, I can remember running a 10 miler in the Garden of the Gods and finishing that and being like, that's it. I'm never going any further, you know, but it progressed and that led to a marathon and the rest, you know,
it sounds like it. Yeah. What kept bringing you back to it in that early stage?
Early on, it was the social aspect of it. Then very quickly, you know, I would be inspired. I started playing this fun game, you know, where I would see if I could possibly go fast enough in the 10K to be on the podium in the 70 and over division in men.
Yeah.
And because
and how old were you at this point?
I was like 30.
Okay, gotcha.
And I knew I had a good race if I got like top 3 in the 70-year-olds.
Yeah,
and that kind of led to this awakening, like, man, you're never too old, you know, and also just immersing yourself in that community. You know, you're hearing about, oh, there's this guy that does this and he ran for 24 hours, or there's this guy, he did this, and you're, you know, for me anyway, it was like crack. Like the adventure bug got me, and then it was, the social was always there, but then it started to be like, well, I wonder, the question just kept being, I wonder if I can, you know, and that led to further and further.
What was, because I know you got into adventure races, so it wasn't just running specific. For those that may not be familiar with that, can you like kind of let folks know like what are these type of events and what they look like?
I dabbled for a while in triathlon, and it was just too type A for me. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It was really about PRs and the time and that sort of thing. Adventure racing is like the outdoor version of that. Not the triathlons, obviously, outdoors, but adventure racing, first of all, it typically has a team concept to it. So you're with people and friends, 3 or 4 of you, but then the race can involve everything. You know, the gun goes off and you bike 30 miles this way, and you do all your own navigation, you know, and then you're ditching your bike and then you're running over here. And then you might be trying to orienteer, which orienteering is using a compass to find your way. And that may lead to some grain silo somewhere that you climb up to the top and rappel off of.
That's cool.
So it's exactly what it says. It's adventure racing. And it was really big at the time. The Eco Challenge was huge. It was kind of the start of reality TV for people. Remember that? And guys like Ian Adamson and Rebecca Rush and a lot of these people, Marshall Ulrich, who I've been fortunate to become friends with. I mean, they were doing these 5, 6, 7-day adventures in Borneo where you're racing and people aren't sleeping for 3 days. And, you know, again, it was just, it just continued to fuel the adventure bug. And you obviously did your homework, and, you know, that led to me taking on the world's longest kayak race in the Yukon, which almost killed me, literally. And so all of those things kind of led me to where I am now.
That's us. All right. So is it the Yukon River Quest? Is that right? Yeah. What was that like? Yeah. I don't think we've ever talked to anyone who's done a kayak adventure race before.
So the Yukon River Quest is it's on the Yukon River. It's the longest kayak race in the world. It's listed as one of the, in some publications, it's listed in the top 10 most difficult races in the world. It's probably been 7 or 8 years since that thing almost ended me, but I want to say it's like 248 miles. And man, it's crazy. it taught me a really good lesson. There's a really fine line between your appetite for adventure and making sure you're prepared. And I was pretty well prepared, but it taught me the consequences in these type of events. I capsized in a big lake where a lot of people have capsized before. Literally underneath my kayak had the thought that this is going to be where I was going to die. I couldn't get out of it, and had just kind of a calm near-death experience where I remembered that the water was clear and to open my eyes, and that allowed me to kind of pull the skirt off of my kayak and get out of it. But I ended up hypothermic and woke up a day and a half later in a medical tent. So that's a race I'm going to have to go back to. I don't take DNFs very lightly, but that one got the better of me.
That's crazy. Does that moment, when was that, when that happened? What year?
That had to be, I think it was 2004. I think it was 2004.
So you've had many more races since then. Has that moment stuck underneath the kayak? Does that come back to you when you're out doing other races?
It comes back to me more just in everyday life. It's a difficult thing to put into words, but being in that place, I'm not afraid to die.
Yeah.
And I think that's because I literally was in that space where time just stopped underneath that kayak, and I was like, this is where I end. And I can remember it just being such a peaceful place. And so, and the flip side of that is, that you can push yourself a long, long ways beyond where the mind tells you should stop. So I draw on it in both venues, in life and also when I'm trying to run around a pretty big lake.
Yeah. Let's get into running around Lake Michigan. How did that start? Where did the idea come from?
So we'd mentioned earlier the run around, or the run across Iowa. And I thought running across Iowa was a big enough venture that it would raise 20 or 30 grand, maybe 50 grand. No idea, right?
Yeah, right.
Because I'd never done it. So I'm proud of every dollar, and everybody should be. If you put a lemonade stand out there and you raise 25 cents, hey, if everybody raised 25 cents today to help cure cancer, we'd probably cure it.
Yeah.
So every little bit helps. But at the end of that, I'm like, man, I just kicked off 292 miles in 11 days, raised $3,500. I thought I could do better, or I thought I would do better. And so it was during that run that I thought, well, I like math, I like numbers. I was like, the way to really make this work is to get 100 of me, do something that we get 100 fundraisers. And then if they all raise $3,500, now we're talking, it's 350 grand. You're making a dent. And so at that time, you have a little time on your hands when you're running 292 miles. You come up with some ideas. Some too crazy to talk about on the radio, but others like this. I thought, I'll organize a cross country relay, and everybody will run a marathon, and that'll take like 150 runners, and we'll raise a big chunk of money. So I thought that's what I would do next. And in the process of trying to get all of that together, my family, my sister, who's actually a breast cancer survivor, lived in Chicago. Some friends told me to go to Indiana Dunes, which is a national park on the southern tip of Lake Michigan. And even from the road, you can't see what it really is. And as soon as you kind of venture back in there, you might as well be in the Sahara. I mean, there's these giant 100-foot tall sand dunes that you would never imagine are there. And some friends had said, go there, dude. You'll have a blast. You'll knock yourself out. It's just up one hill, down the other in the sand. I was like, I'm game, So I went there, did that, ran up and down those hills. And then, 4 or 5 hours later, sitting on the banks of Lake Michigan, looking to the west, I could see Chicago. And anytime I'd look at Lake Michigan, before that, I'd been in Chicago, right? So you're in this giant city,
Right.
and you're looking at this giant lake. Everything's giant. But from where I was, the lake made Chicago look that big. And I was just like, man, this is a huge freaking lake. And literally the next thought in my head was, I wonder if anybody's ever tried to run around it.
Yeah. But had anyone at that point run around it? Gotcha.
No one had.
So you said they hadn't. Sorry, I think you broke out for a sec.
No one didn't swing at it.
Gotcha. Cool. So you had the idea to run. Take us to how you got to the start line. Then what was that kind of preparation process like?
Well, the first thing is it's one thing to think about doing something big, and we'll talk about the book as well. It's another thing to put it out there. So, because once you put it out there, I mean, you own it, right? And so first things first, I had to figure out geography. School in general was not my strong point.
Yeah.
I didn't even know if it was possible. I didn't know if it was landlocked. I didn't know if you could get around it. So that was the start to see if it was possible. It was. There's a 5-mile bridge that separates Lake Michigan and I believe it's Lake Huron.
Okay.
On the northeast corner of Lake Michigan, and that's and so we had fun with that. I ran in place in the RV as we went across the lake.
Yeah.
So, I could truly say I kept running all the way.
That's awesome.
So I had to figure out if it was possible, which it was. Then I had to figure out, how far it was. And then, it turned me on and terrified me at the same time, because I realized once I did a little bit of math that it was 3.5 times as long as the Iowa run, which, the Iowa run was so much further than anything I had ever done. So, you have to come up with the idea. Then you have to decide, what are the steps to do it. And at some point you have to put it out there.
Yeah.
And once you do that, then things will start to fall in place. I did enough planning to make sure I could get to the start, but I didn't want to squeeze it. There were things that, because you could plan yourself to death, and it's another thing. The running is just a metaphor in the book. I mean, you could put in anything that you wanted, whether it's a business goal, whatever the goal may be, but you can plan yourself to death and never start.
Right.
You can, what do they say? Paralysis by analysis. Yep. And so I needed gas, I needed food, I needed a vehicle, I needed a coach. I had coached myself for the run across Iowa, but I wasn't comfortable taking on something this big. And so once I had all of those pieces, including having someone that could kind of tell me what I needed to do with my body, then I was ready. And we started on Memorial Day in 2012 at Harry Carey's on Navy Pier. I'm a lifelong Cubs fan, so that was a great place to start.
Yeah.
And then the plan was, if successful, 40 days later, we'd be back in the exact same place.
What was it like? Take us to that moment of starting. What were you feeling? What was that like?
Man, starting was such a relief. Because for anybody that's done, well, anything, I mean, we're talking about a run, but
right.
If it's starting your blog, or if it's starting this show that you're doing right here,
yeah.
At some point you've done all the work, you've done all the planning, and you're, not that there's still not emotions and some fear and some excitement and all of those kind of things, but when it's finally go time and you've done the work, and you're hitting record on that button of yours for the very first time, that's a pretty sweet feeling, man. And I think it's something we all can relate to on any level. Yeah, mine was a 40-day, 1,037-mile run. But I had that same feeling at my first 5K. I had it at my first half marathon. I had it when I hit send on the manuscript for the book. And I think that's what life's all about, man. That feeling right there.
Of starting.
Yeah.
So you start and you get rolling. And so is it a marathon a day? Is that kind of how the math works out that you were doing?
Yeah. That's the math. I mean, it wasn't, because of the logistics, how, there wasn't necessarily a town every 26.2 miles, but, some days it was 28.5, some days it was 23.8, but, over 40 days, if you divide it by 1,040, that's 26 miles a day on the average.
So take us, I guess, through the run. What was it like? Just take us to a typical day. So you're going, you started, you have the excitement, and now you're in the grind of it. When did you wake up? How far did you go? When did you eat? How did you use the bathroom? How's all that? How'd that work?
That's great, man. I wish I shouldn't say that. I was going to say, I wish there was a typical.
There was a typical.
A typical day.
Yeah.
But the beauty of it was, there was no typical day. But to give you kind of a Cliff Notes version, first of all, I decided early on that my body would be in charge. This wasn't a race. I had all day to cover the miles. I knew from my run across Iowa that at some point my mind would completely revolt, and I was ready for that. I was excited for it because I know what's on the other side if you can push through that. But on a daily basis, there were some similarities in every day. I had plantar fasciitis in both of my feet, not a bad case, but I developed it in training. And so the early portions of every day were the dangerous portions, because until your feet kind of warm up, those tendons are so tight that literally you could snap them and that could end the run. So the most dangerous and difficult and crazy time was the 3 steps from the back of the RV to the bathroom every morning. I mean, literally getting out of bed and making that walk was kind of like, okay, one step at a time, man, nice and slow. You got to take it easy.
Yeah.
And then I tried to eat breakfast. It was crazy though, man. It was like, I joked that it felt like I was pregnant. I mean, there was things during training, I'd eat 8 eggs in the morning and half a pound of bacon, and I just loved it. And I ate it every day. We got on the run, and there were mornings where I was going to throw it at the guy that was taking care of me, be like, just give me pickles and peanut butter. And I mean, I would and it was so hot that you couldn't eat for crap. It was, I think we probably 30 of the 40 days were between 90 and 100 degrees. Some of the days were over that. But
when did you start? What was the date that you started?
May 28th.
Okay.
Which was Memorial Day that year, and still to this day, it's the hottest Memorial Day in Chicago history. It was, I think the temperature reached 103 real temperature. On the pavement, it was probably 125 or 30 in the city.
Night. Yeah.
But you'd eat and then you just start moving, man. And in the early days, before I started to get really sore, you could jog a little bit. You'd warm up nice and slow, and then you just get to work. And, again, I just let my body be the boss. Sometimes I'd run a mile or 2 at a time. There were mornings later in the run where I could crack off more than that. There were times I was running and I was done by 3 or 4 in the afternoon. There were times I was still on my feet at midnight. So there was no typical day, although once I got into it, got through my mind kind of breaking down and started to settle in, and I wasn't working against the pavement anymore. I wasn't working against my mind anymore. All of those things were kind of becoming one. It really becomes kind of this spiritual journey, at least for me. Then things got a little bit more routine, and honestly, I wish I could have kept doing it forever.
How did you get through the mental side? Because I think that's something that everybody can relate to. And you mentioned before, it's such a mind game, and you knew your mind was going to break down at some point. And I know for our runners, even a 5K or 10K, you're still having those mental struggles. How did you find yourself getting through it and get to the other side?
Yeah, there's a great saying in ultra running, and I think it's kind of true. maybe in all running, maybe in life too, it's, you know, if something hurts, don't worry about it, because pretty soon something else will take its place.
Yeah.
And I think the real message there is just don't get too caught up in the little stuff. You know, you'll settle. And again, it's so amazing how I can relate a 40-day journey into my first 5K, because it's just a bigger view. You know, it's in your 5K. If you warm up okay, you know, there's going to be a point early on in the race that at some point you're going to be like, this sucks. I just want to quit. Like, it hurts, you know. But if you don't run from it, no pun intended, if you go into the discomfort, if you enter into it, you'll go through it. And then somewhere around mile 2 or 2.5, you'll start to find a rhythm, and there'll be a rhythm to your pace and a rhythm to your breathing. And then you're in the sweet spot, man. And that's the runner's high. That's the zone. And so, you know, I feel like you have to earn that sweet spot, and that little bit of discomfort and pain, whether it's your 5K or your half marathon, that point where you start to doubt, you just hang on, you go into it, even embrace it, and you eventually come through the other side. And that's the juicy stuff, man.
Describe the other side for those that may not have experienced it. What's it like?
I get goosebumps. You asking me that question?
Yeah.
I get goosebumps because I was fortunate that, you know, I can remember going down the road on the 6th or 7th day, and I talk about it in the book, and I could just feel it coming, man. I could tell. And I told my buddy Jared, who crewed for me the whole way driving the RV, I'm like, don't worry about me, man. You know, it's going to get really dark. I could just tell it. And, you know, I went down the road for 2 or 3 miles, and I was just in tears. I mean, I was sobbing, just everything. My mind was just breaking. It was like, it was finally realizing like it was going to have to let go of me. And, you know, maybe it's like giving birth. I don't know. But on the other side, when I came through, there was just this sense of relief and this sense of calm and peace. And not to say that there weren't many more challenging physical and emotional times, but after that, I just knew everything was going to be okay. And the connection then, because my mind realized, I think, that it couldn't stop me, it just started to go more and more quiet. And as it got more quiet, I was able to connect more to the best parts of me and to everything around me.
That's real cool. What's it, you mentioned your crew. Was it just one guy that was out there with you? Or I guess some folks may not realize the whole support team you have. It's not just you out there running by yourself, but you got a whole team with you. What was that like with them?
Well, some of the people that are listening to this in the running community will know Marshall Ulrich's book, Running on Empty, when he talks about his life, which my book ended up to be pretty similar. I thought it was going to be a book about a run around Lake Michigan. It became something completely more deep than that. But, you know, in his book, he talks about his wife, who was with him the whole time, sometimes rubbing his legs while he was sleeping. I mean, he was running almost 60 miles a day across the United States. And I've told him, we've since become friends many times, and he's heard it many times. She was really the true hero of the run. He'd be the first to tell you the same, that the running was easy. And I would tell you the same thing. Jared was my support crew. It wasn't a 3 or 4 person crew. He drove the RV. He'd drive that thing a mile or 2 at a time, wait by the side of the road for me to come by. Sometimes I'd stop, refuel, maybe I'd change shoes, maybe I'd change out socks, maybe I'd, you know, be crying, maybe I'd be happy. I mean, the mood swings were all over the place, but he did that for 40 days, man. Like 2 miles at a time, a mile at a time, wash my clothes, feed me, and the dude can cook like no other. I'd love to go on another 40-day run just because I've
Just
never
to
eaten
eat.
that good before or since. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, he cooked up the best stuff. So, but there were many others. There were people that I knew that came out to get a piece of the run, to run with me. There were people that heard about the run through different news media that would come out and run. And certainly all of them played a huge part in it, because each person you touch on the run, you know, they go with you. You know, if you follow those kind of things, or if you have a friend doing those kind of things, you're invested in it. And I didn't lose sight of that, you know, there would have been a message had I quit, and there was a message because I didn't quit.
That's really good. So you didn't quit, and you finished. What was it like finishing as you're coming? You finished in Chicago, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We made a rule early on that we would not talk about day 40 until it was day 40.
Okay.
And we stuck to it. The key to the run, the key in my estimation to everything in life, is staying in the moment. Certainly you have to have a plan for everything you do, but once that plan is in place, then it's about staying in the moment and doing what has to be done right now, and trusting that the next step will come when the next step comes.
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point coming through South Chicago, we came out on the lake on the bike path, and it was the first time we saw Navy Pier since we left it over 1,000 miles and 39 days ago. And man, that was surreal. That was a great moment with a couple of my friends that had been there at the start, and they had come back, and Jared, of course, was still there. And that's when really, that was the first time I think that I really was like, I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
And my family, my mother, who is the only reason, not only that I made the run, that I'm still alive. There's a lot of dark times in the book, and Lord knows I gave her plenty of reasons to give up on me. She was waiting at the finish. My sister, her daughter, and a couple other friends ran the last couple miles with me into Navy Pier. It was a really busy day on Navy Pier. One of the guys that was running with us, I joke about him being like a town crier. I mean, he was letting everybody within a half mile hear what was going down as we were running in. And I was a bit embarrassed by it at the start, but after, I was like, this is really cool. And, you know, to have my mom waiting there and kind of fall into her arms and have it kind of come full circle was probably the coolest moment of my life.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So you said this is 2012 that you finished, is that right? Okay. And the book just came out December 2015, so just a couple months ago.
That's right. Yeah.
So you had mentioned that starting, whether it's a 5K or running around Lake Michigan or a manuscript, that there's all crazy emotions to it. What was it like putting the story into words, and what's it like now, like having it out there? Like, do you find some of the same feelings bubbling up that you had on the actual run?
For sure. You know, and completing the book was just like the run. You know, I started out just doing some note taking just to kind of go back into that space, because you're so in it, you don't remember things like the best pizza in the world at the bowling alley in Wisconsin, you know, things like that you would have never remembered. And then, you know, you think you're writing about a book, or you think you're writing about a run, and all of a sudden you find yourself writing about your parents' divorce or your battles with alcoholism, and you know, just and it became really therapeutic for me. But at the same time, you know, when it's done and you're like, yes, I did it. I can't believe it. You hit send, and then there's that moment where you're like, oh crap. Like, man, people are going to know me now. Like, you know, there's people that know you, and then there's people that know you. And to now hit send and put this thing out there where people anywhere in the world that want to read my story can read it, you know, you think, oh, wow. You know, have I just like let too many skeletons out of the, you know, but it's the book now, I think as of yesterday, has got 51 reviews, 49 of them are 5-star reviews. And not that that's so important, although certainly, you know, we all want to have good things
Right.
said about our work. The things that are more important are what those reviews say. Many of them say, you know, I've been putting this off for a long time. It's a dream that I've wanted to do. And after reading your book, you know, I'm going to do it, you know, or a guy saying, I shared this with troubled kids that are dealing with alcohol issues. And, you know, it shows them that, you know, there's light on the other side. And so, you know, that's a pretty surreal thing to have your dreams realized, that you hope that maybe somebody somewhere might be inspired and that they may tap into and hear your voice. And so that's been something pretty amazing.
That's really cool. If folks want to check out the book, what's the best place for them to do it?
Amazon.
Okay.
You know, where you get everything, right?
Where you get everything, yeah.
Right. So if you put 40 Days by Steve Cannon into Amazon, you can get the paperback or the ebook there. And, you know, it's funny, and it's another message of the book, like, take one step in the direction of your dreams and you'll be amazed where it can take you. I never would have seen myself as an author. I never would have seen myself as someone who might raise $700,000 for cancer charities or run around a lake, or now be working on a couple more books. So, you know, that's the deal, man. Every time you accomplish anything, your first 5K, your first book, your first radio program, it allows you to see a broader vision of what you are capable of. And that's pretty cool.
That's really cool. Yeah, and if for those of you guys that might be watching Blab or watching the replay, we just put the link in the notes. And then if you guys are listening to this on our podcast, just in the show notes on the page. So yeah, that's very, very cool. We're looking forward to diving into it and learning more of the crazy things you're doing. But you've mentioned, I think, something consistently throughout is there's always more out there. You can always push yourself further and go and do more things. So what is more for you? Like what's coming up next? You mentioned two books that are coming out, or I know one's coming out later this year. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, golly, I just got this message on my phone that my energy is getting low. I hope it doesn't cut us off.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
if it does, I'll cut back. I'll call you right back if it does.
No, that's fine.
So I'm working on 2 books, 3 books actually, about these winter ultra races that I just did. The Arrowhead 135, Tuscobia 150, and Active Epica, which are these amazing winter ultras that you can bike, ski, run in some of the harshest environments in the lower 48. Actually, one of them was in Canada. And I do have an idea. I have something that has kind of captured my imagination that no one has done before. I'm not quite to that point yet that I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. But I promise you, when I do, if you want to chat about it,
definitely.
I've got some details to figure out to make sure I can pull it off, but I'd love to come back and chat with you
we love
about
to
it.
chat
Yeah.
That sounds good. So it sounds like you've got the idea. You're working on the planning. You had that 3-step process, so now you're waiting before letting the world know about it, right?
Yeah, because it's a similar situation. It'll be 2.5, 3 times bigger than the run around Lake Michigan. So,
oh wow,
again, you know, there's a little fear involved there. So I'll have to
just a little bit. Yeah, I think you could be a little afraid. That's good.
Yeah,
that's cool. Well, I know your battery's running low, but if folks want to keep up with you and the crazy things that you're working on, what's the best place for them to do that?
Oh, let's see. So I love Twitter. So @RunCannonRun on Twitter is a great place to connect. I'm on Facebook, Steve Cannon. You'll see that it's me pretty quickly, and bald head and crazy pictures.
Yeah,
and they can follow the book on 40 Days on Facebook as well. And so any of those places, the website's called Expand Your Possible, and it's all spelled out. So there's plenty of places you can find me, and you know, that's the great joy of this, is connecting with people. And so I hope, you know, people will shout out on Twitter, and because it's not a one-way street. I get motivated from following people that are doing their first 5K, because I've been there, man. And you hear about somebody that's overcoming their struggle to do something like that. You don't have to do anything big to inspire, man. You do something that's big for you, that's a push for you. You're going to inspire somebody else. And so it's great just watching everybody else's stories, because that's what we're here for, is to kind of boost each other up. And, you know, just talking to you today it gets me fired up, and it's a great way to share and do stuff.
That's awesome. Well, we thank you so much for hanging out with us and chatting with us in a coffee shop. And man, your story is incredible. So we look forward to sharing it with our audience, and keeping tabs on what you got coming next. So definitely stay in touch. We'd love to hear what you got going on.
We'll be in touch, man. If I ever get to Georgia, I'll look you up. We'll head out for a run, bro.
That's right. I will go very slow, but we got some people in our office that are pretty quick to probably keep up with you. So
it'll go the exact opposite, man. I can shuffle forever, but somebody breaks out a 7 or 8 mile pace on me, I'm going to be hurt.
You're done. Oh, we're good then. I can definitely keep up with you. So that'll be good. Good stuff.
I love it.
All right. Well, thanks for chatting with us today.
Thanks, man. Been a pleasure.
Thank you.